While we and our allies hold the front line, the Empire is mobilizing behind us. Here are the first 3.7 AA guns to be made in Australia, handed over by the Assistant Minister of Supply.
It is my pleasant and indispensable duty, General Brudenell White, to hand over to you on behalf of the Department of the Army these 2 guns of Australian manufacture, a class of completion that I'm sure every Australian is rightly and justly proud of.
They were made in a Commonwealth Ordnance factory. They are the first of, well, as many as we need in the great struggle in which the whole Empire shares. They were made in Australia and made magnificently. And so were these fighting men. Another contingent of the AIF embarks for overseas. However tough the job, these are the boys to see it through, with Australian initiative, Australian toughness, and the unconquerable Digger smile. No blaze of banners, no surge of cheering crowds to see them off. They're on their way to do a job of work for the Empire, and the Empire knows how they're going to do it. The stoker has thrown down his shovel, the clerk has thrown aside his pen. Each has picked up a rifle to join the swelling tide of khaki, which is the Army of Australia. And that's not all. As the Allies fling every man and every resource into the struggle against Nazi and fascist hordes, more young men of Australia answer the call. Only one thought is in their minds: the aggressors must be stopped.
Resist His Majesty's enemies.
That I will resist His Majesty's enemies.
And cause His Majesty's peace to be kept and maintained.
And cause His Majesty's peace to be kept and maintained.
And now they're to be transformed from civilians into soldiers of the King and Empire. Already there's a new set to their shoulders, a new lift to their chins. They're on the verge of the big adventure, proud to be of service in their country's hour of need. From all quarters of the Empire come the fighters for freedom. Mr. L.S. Amery, Secretary of State for India, inspects a detachment of the Royal Indian Army Service Corps, and he is accompanied by the Duke of Devonshire. The RIASC has been doing magnificent work in many theatres of war, and these men have already proved themselves in the field. One of their jobs is to keep open lines of communication and at all costs to take up vital supplies. Brothers in arms, we salute you. Her Majesty graciously visits a hospital in Hertfordshire and spends several hours among the British and French soldiers. She has a smile for each one. She asks about their experiences, and to the poilus, of course, she speaks in French. These charming pictures tell their own story of the pleasure that this royal visit brings to the men who have already done a good deal more than their bit. The Queen is glad to learn that the men will also be visited by their relatives. May the presence of their loved ones help to make them well again. The King holds his first open-air investiture since the war in the inner quadrangle of Buckingham Palace. He is decorating 47 more war heroes. 30 of them are officers of the Royal Air Force, but all 3 services are represented, and the Queen watches from the palace balcony. Wearing the uniform of Admiral of the Fleet, His Majesty has a word of congratulation for each of the men, as a grateful king honors the flower of Britain's manhood. Tanks, tanks, and still more tanks is Britain's answer to the enemy's mechanized drive. Output in this typical factory is rocketing to real war requirements under the powerful stimulus of the go-ahead trio, Herbert Morrison, Ernest Bevin, and Lord Beaverbrook. Workmen know that this is a workers' war. They're putting everything they've got into the job and not wasting time between courses. The flow of tanks is reassuring. The fatal belief that the war would win itself is overboard. But we're awake at last, and every machine in every factory is going to it. And now we take you out into the open to see Britain's cruiser tanks and Bren gun carriers on test. We don't have to tell you about their performance. You can see for yourselves. The troops that man the tanks we already have are trained to a hair. In Egypt, they're ready for anything that events in the Mediterranean may let loose. The Suez Canal is only one of many vital points that Britain must hold if Germany and Italy are to be beaten. Strange traffic patrols Cairo these days, but with Britain and France at last waging war to the utmost, the city may soon be peaceful again. In her supreme hour of trial, the courage of France rises above adversity. Monsieur Renault and his government made a final appeal to President Roosevelt. Undeterred by the havoc which has battered down the walls of noble cities, which has violated the sanctuary of hallowed churches, which churns up even the resting places of the dead, the French poilu, like the statue of his predecessor, stands erect among the ruins. Pathetic creatures haunt the wreckage. Other sights too grim to show you, those you must imagine, for all this destruction is not wrought without appalling loss of civilized life. Through the villages trundle French anti-aircraft units. Overhead fly enemy bombers. Another plane is among those missing, which the Germans are at pains not to count too carefully. More and more German prisoners are brought in. One man jumped from that shattered plane. Quickly they are transported to the rear, and in the blistering heat they're glad of the drink provided by a humane captor. Another German casualty, an armored car of one of the motorized divisions which have been the spearhead of the enemy's attack. France's own tanks have proved themselves great fighters, advancing to counterattack with the valiant armies. In this grim struggle, which is literally for her life, it was ordained by a cruel fate that in her supreme hour of trial, France had to fight without the main support of the former BEF. But now every day new British units are coming back to help, and here they are, British tanks moving up to oppose the enemy. Though Britain is faced by the threat of direct attack from the Channel ports, she will not stint her help to her ally. As fast as they can be re-equipped by the mighty war effort of our factories, British troops will be back on French soil to reinforce with their cheerful valor the courage of France. Back from the beaches of Flanders, covered with honor and glory, come the tiny boats, the fleet of Saucy Janes. Now they're back in their home waters on the Thames after their superb work in the great evacuation. Back from Dunkirk, and this is what they left behind. A smoking ruin of a port, continually bombed and shelled. A blazing town defended to the last. The smoke from Dunkirk almost obscured the sun. But in this inferno, while the BEF and their French comrades held off the Nazis, it was here that the yachts and motorboats, the Saucy Janes, performed their magnificent feats of rescue. Many were lost, sunk, blown to bits or burnt, but the gallant armada carried on. In vessels of every size and every shape, 1/3 of a million unbeaten men were brought home under the protection of the Royal Navy. Under their own power or in tow, they crossed the Channel under almost continuous enemy fire to bring their valiant but exhausted passengers back to safety. And now they're back home again on London's river, back to the quiet waters of the Thames. In a great emergency, they were given a tremendous job, and they did it magnificently. War comes suddenly to a peaceful garden in East Anglia, when an enemy bomber crashes near a rectory, killing 2 of the crew outright. The third, who was captured after a struggle, has since died. British airmen examine the wreckage, and here's what's left of the parachute one of the Nazis used in trying to escape. The rectory was badly damaged, but luckily no one was injured. When the machine crashed, it exploded with tremendous force. To the hush of the countryside comes winged death. The Italian hired assassin draws his stiletto. Mussolini waits until France is reeling under the blows of Germany to stab her in the back. There are few parallels in history to so shameless an act of treachery. But now the task is to confound the tyrants, who before, during and since Munich have conspired against the liberty of mankind. Britons have a friendly feeling for the Italian royal family, whose influence was said to be against the war. But it's a mistake to assume that the Italian people and army are opposed to Mussolini's action. The truth is that Italian feelings will be determined by the course of the war. For the first time, Italians are now our enemies, and in Soho, London's Italian quarter, friendly little restaurants decide to remove evidence of their nationality. Those run by British owners, which have yet boasted their Italian cooking, are now quick to publicize their true ownership. 1 or 2 panes of glass have suffered overnight, but they're probably due to some private grudge in a neighborhood where rivalries run high. But we shall be wise to take the Italian Navy seriously and to realize that Italy's army has some good troops. No advantage is ever achieved by underrating the enemy, however much we may despise his motives. British fighter planes have been playing a mighty part in stemming the gigantic German attack. The moment they touch the ground, they're refueled and off again, with hardly a rest or let-up. In recent operations, the RAF have been using automatic cameras to film some of the most amazing pictures ever seen on the screen, the first official record of aerial combat in the sky. The cameras use film of the small home movie type, and they fit into the wings of our Hurricanes and Spitfires alongside the machine guns. They automatically take pictures when the pilot fires and stop when he stops firing. Sometimes clouds smear the lenses, and for many reasons the pictures aren't perfect, but they're a record of actual air fighting. Up go the Hurricanes and Spitfires, and the cameras go with them. Soon they sight a German bomber, as yet unaware that a Spitfire is streaking across the sky in pursuit. And now comes the film taken by an RAF automatic camera. You are seeing what our pilots see in action. There in front is a German. Slowly and relentlessly, we're overhauling him. And now we're on his tail, for a picture that conveys all the peril of a Nazi chased by a British fighter. Already one of his engines is on fire. We repeat the brief picture, and this time at the crucial point we stop the action. There is the Nazi on fire, just before he crashes to destruction. These pictures bring the air war to you. You can clearly see the path of the British tracer bullets. In the next picture you will see the German pilots take to their parachutes. There they go, 2 of them below the plane. Every new picture is a new fight and a new British victory. Now you will see parts of a Nazi shot away as the British bullets hit the mark. Literally shot to pieces, and he's only one of hundreds. And yet another, shot to pieces. On fire, and with pieces falling away. Each week, German planes are being shot down in hundreds. Not only because our pilots are better, but because our planes are better too. Each 8-gun British fighter has a firepower greater than the entire machine gun strength of a 1914 infantry brigade. That power is reflected in death and destruction to the enemy. The victorious pilot returns. While he was fighting the Germans, the automatic camera was taking pictures that gave his view of the war in the air. Pictures that show why the RAF beat the Nazis over Dunkirk, and why eventually we shall shoot them out of the sky.